Okay, so welcome to video 2 in the Trainer Mastery Series, Becoming a Fitness Guru. Hugely important if you really want to make an impact on this world, especially if you're in the fitness industry and you want to really help and inspire people and change people's lives. You need systems. So in the last video we talked about systems, we talked about the importance of figuring out, expanding the range of clients that you work with, getting into the dead zone, working with dead zone clients and pulling them into the fitness world. If you haven't seen video 1, I highly encourage you to see video 1 first and make sure you have a full understanding of all of that stuff before we move on. And there's some great content in there. We talked about biomechanics. We talked about a system to reliably test and advance biomechanics and starting at the right place, and a whole bunch of stuff that we went through, and it was amazing content, and I'm glad if you've watched it. That's awesome. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the other systems that I use. Some of the systems that outside of biomechanics, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff to talk about, a bunch of stuff that you need to deal with your clients, nutrition. We all know there's a host of things to do. Depending on where your clients are starting, what their highest priority is, will depend on what systems you apply to them. For example, because as an athletic therapist, I do deal with injured as well as, as a conditioning coach, I deal with the whole spectrum of people. But if somebody comes in and they're injured, whatever the level of injury, it's limiting their, let's say, ability to run. And they're a runner. And, like cardiovascular fitness is super important. We need to start addressing that. Even if somebody's coming in for weight loss, but they have knee pain. You have to figure out a way to make sure you're applying all the systems, from nutrition to cardiovascular training to all of that stuff, and do it in a way that's organized, that is, doesn't overwhelm your client. It is simple and sustainable and really integrates into a lifestyle. One of my biggest philosophies is if I'm going to teach somebody something, I want them to be able to integrate it into their lifestyle so that it becomes seamless, and it's not just something they do for a little while they're working with me, but they do it for the coming months, years. And even beyond working with me, a lot of clients stick around because they like the environment and really everything that they get out of it. But if they moved on or moved away, I've had clients move away that still keep in contact through email and phone or whatever, but they have the systems in place and they're still successful because of it. So you want systems that, first of all, like I said before, whatever they're coming in with, you want to get gains early. You want to start working them towards their goal, whatever the limitations they're faced with right now. So a lot of people do get stuck there, like, oh, I can't really do much with them. They got knee pain and, I'm supposed to be doing running or biking or whatever. But we have to deal with this. No. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do without getting overwhelmed yourself, having to, have them in a whole bunch of times. Maybe they can't afford it. Now you're running into other obstacles. If you have the systems in place, you'll be able to hand them this, hand them that. Okay, these are really simple things. We're going to look at this, we're going to look at that, and we're going to integrate this into your lifestyle, just making their lifestyles better. So that process will build their self-confidence because early on they're starting to get gains. They're starting to feel a little bit better and really seeing like, wow, this person really knows what they're talking about. The second thing is they won't get overwhelmed, or if you're communicating well with them, they'll, be like, oh, there's a lot of things to negotiate here. Okay, let's just take this system away for now. Let's really make sure we focus on these and move forward. So really help them make sure that they're not completely overwhelmed. The other thing that this really is hugely important for you, for long-term success of the client and working with the client for long-term, is you're going to build trust. You're going to build that sense in them. In the marketing world, they talk about the wow experience. A wow experience is when you walk in somewhere. It doesn't even matter what it is, what the business is. And right from the initial start, it's like, wow, they're really organized. Wow, there's, lots of stuff. They're servicing me. This is, they always, when you walk out of that office, like, wow, that place was really well run. Really well run things are driven on systems. So, enough about that. We're going to talk about, I go through a staged process, and we're going to go through every stage and make sure that you have the systems in place and you have the right paperwork and the right things to give to your clients early on. So we'll get into it right away and get started. Okay. What we talked about in video 1 was identifying the different zones that people could be in particular the dead zone, expanding your range of clients that you can work with into the dead zone, drawing people out of the dead zone, really affecting their lives, finding super motivated people in here, and great to work with, and really working this whole spectrum and understanding where people are. If you're going to, the first system that I employ, stage 1, is sort of the 3-part that you probably, have this in place to some degree, but we're going to talk about as much in depth as I can get to in this set of videos. So, step 1, and don't let the simplicity of this take you off guard. This is definitely I've seen over many years, many fitness professionals and therapy professionals not going through this process completely at the beginning. You have to do this. You have to figure out, it is your responsibility to figure out where their starting point is. If you have somebody and they come in and, they really want to work with you, but they're in the therapy zone, you should have an association with somebody that's in the therapy zone, that has those skills. Maybe it is you. If you're an athletic therapist, maybe it is you. Have the means to deal with them if they're there. But whatever the case may be, you have to figure out what their starting point is. We talked about it in the biomechanics, figuring out their fundamentals, all that sort of stuff. But there's a bunch of other things that you need to do, which we'll talk about in a second. The other thing is, you got to figure out what their end goal is. Okay, so what are they trying to achieve? Determine these two things, and we'll talk about specifics in a second. And then you're going to easily create a pathway to get them from where they are today to where they want to go. You can also easily articulate, okay, how long is this process going to take? When you start justifying, like, okay, you're going to work with me for 6 months, 12 months, year, whatever it is, getting to where you want to go, identifying where you're starting from, this is what it's going to take to get there. An exercise program, whether it's exercise therapy or pure fitness, exercise program has 2 purposes. To get them, especially if you're trying to get them out of the dead zone, but let's say they're starting mid-dead zone here, to get them out of the dead zone and to their goal without ever going back, there's 2 purposes. First purpose that everybody focuses on is the goal. The goal itself. Applying all the right things, doing cardiovascular training, nutrition, whatever it is. The most unrecognized thing, the thing that people aren't doing, because it tends to take a little bit more time, a little bit more work, but has to be done. And if you don't do this step, there's a very good chance that if the person's not already in the dead zone, you will be putting them there, is balance. Exercise program. Somebody comes in to me and says, well, I want to be a better golfer. A one-sided rotational activity. Great, okay, yeah, we can make you a better golfer. Your exercise program needs to achieve 2 things. Make them stronger at the golf swing, better technique, whatever it is that you're working on, better dynamics, better biomechanics. But the other part of the exercise program should be counterbalancing all the one-sided activity that they're doing. keeping them balanced. I have seen people come into my clinic and we do just even the basic postural static exam, and they're standing rotated. They're either standing rotated at the hips or they're standing rotated in the thoracic spine. This is either, they did a lot of one-sided activities, but if they're coming from some other fit pro, then, the exercise programs weren't designed to balance them out. So keep that in mind. Figure out where they are, figure out where they're going, create a pathway that does two things: achieves the goal and keeps them balanced. Okay? Okay, we're going to go on to stage 2. Okay, stage 2, after you've done your evaluation, figured out from, some of the biomechanical movements, some of the fundamental stuff, you're getting them going, figuring out where their baseline is. Talk to them about goals. So if you've done any course at all, they've talked about setting up SMART goals and making sure that, people understand what they're trying to achieve. And then talk to them, articulate to them how much work that's going to take, how much dedication, what sort of time, that sort of thing. Now we start getting into, besides the exercise program, the physical skills that we're teaching them, or if you're doing just regular strength training, that's fine. We talk about implementing the other systems that you need to be able to hand to them early on, as soon as you start working with them. One of the first systems that I do, and it doesn't matter what they're coming to me for, unless it's specifically for a traumatic injury that they came to me, but anything else, they're trying to get healthier, they're trying to better performance, any of that. Okay, the first thing I do is a simple food log. It doesn't need to be complicated, and specifically give no instructions. None. You want to see what their habits are like. Simply giving them a food log will change some of the things. People become conscious, I shouldn't be, eating 12 bags of chips a day, that sort of thing. But I give them a food log for at least a week, if not 2. Don't change anything at all. I want to know what you're doing. So this is the action item, and this is how I work when I'm working with clients. Action items are great. It's their homework, the thing that they need to do, and labeling it as an action item for the next time that we talk. We're going to just track and don't change. Okay? Why not change? Because I want to know as close as possible what the default is. If they start changing things now and then I start adding things to change, then they very easily become overwhelmed, especially if you don't know this person, you haven't developed a relationship, you don't know what their struggles are from a mental standpoint. Track, don't change. Zero pressure. I don't care if whatever you bring to me, that's fine. Here's why. Because we're going to look for the one thing, the one most powerful thing to change in there. We're going to get you to change one thing. We're going to make it sustainable. We're going to add it into your lifestyle and make it easy. Then, when it becomes easy, we move on to the next thing. Okay? So the goal is just pure understanding for your point of view and for theirs. A lot of people have no idea how poorly they're eating until they start to write it down. Matter of fact, a lot of people, if you just simply ask people, what are your nutritional habits like? Oh, good, yeah. Yeah, we eat really well. I eat vegetables, and all that. Oh, okay, sounds great. Okay. So as soon as you tell them to log it, and they come back, and I've had clients say to this, well, what I'm saying and what I'm doing, I guess they're not really matching up. I don't know, you tell me. I don't want to be the one that's always the bearer of bad news. I want to be the person facilitating them. I want to help them. I want to inspire them. I want them to feel good when they're coming to see me, not feel bad like, oh, I didn't do my thing, or oh, this is really bad and embarrassing and I don't want. Nothing's embarrassing. Just show me what you're doing. We're going to make some changes. Dietary systems. So this is where you need to, so if you have a specific dietary system you're working with, you need to compartmentalize it. if it's not already done. Mine is completely compartmentalized, and that way I can take the, so for example, one of the first things, probably you're doing this if you've been into nutrition at all, a food shop and prep day. It's a very simple thing. It has a huge impact on people's lives because most people aren't doing it. They have no idea. They're ill-prepared. They eat poorly because they're ill-prepared. So I changed that. It's a one simple change. Hey, let's do this for a couple of weeks, see how it goes. So whatever dietary system you're working with, and if it's none, then you get on one, or we have one, that sort of thing, and compartmentalize it so that it's easily handed over to your client in small bites. Okay? So this is the action item, is to follow one simple step. Okay? And make it sustainable. The goal is sustainability. This has to be sustainable for the client if it's going to be into their match with their long-term success. The next thing, and you can, depending on how you compartmentalize this, sometimes if I get the indication that the client, right from the food log, maybe I had a client like this who's already doing food logging and stuff like that. Maybe I give it to them right away. Hydration log. Make it simple. Make it really simple. Maybe even just like what we have is check boxes. Check box every time you have a glass of water, that sort of thing, so that they can get some sort of idea. What you can do early on, a lot of people, and if you've been in this field, even for a couple of weeks, and you've asked somebody, how much water are you drinking? Not enough. Okay. How much water should you add? Okay, let's drink 8 liters of water a day. The only thing that's going to be successful about that is making sure that they're in the washroom every 10 minutes. So, one of the simplest ways to do it, a nutrition log, okay, I want every time you have 500 milliliters of water, I want you to make a check mark for the first week. The second week, I want one more check mark. So, adding 500 milliliters of water per day for a week. That sort of thing. Unless they're really extremely low, then you can start bringing them up to, 2 liters or something like that earlier on, or 1.5 liters earlier on. Something like that. But adding one simple check mark every day for a week, and then it's sustainable again already. Okay, now I'm up to 3 check marks a day. The following week, we do 4 check marks a day, that sort of thing. Okay? Again, so the major goal here is increase hydration. Because, as we know, it's important for performance, important for digestion, it's important for many other bodily functions, including biomechanics. Okay? So we want hydration to affect everything that they're doing. Now we'll go to stage 3. Okay, in stage 3, and I use the stage 1, 2, 3 very loosely. It depends on the client, what stage what they're coming in for, and literally what stage they're at. Then maybe you employ some things before others, depending on the obvious biggest obstacle for them at the time. But sleep and stress. In the fitness world, we tend to tiptoe around clients. They're paying us to work with them, that type of thing. Stop tiptoeing around your clients. You need to really make sure that your sleep needs to be talked about and needs to be improved. It's as important as anything else you're going to give them. Stress. Literally in North America, the stress that people are under at work is killing them. Literally killing them. Cortisol with low levels of stress that's consistent. It's releasing cortisol on a regular basis, which is suppressing your immune system, along with a whole host of other things. We need to be addressing people's stress. Not only that, stress affects sleep. That's why these are together. Sleep affects stress, vice versa. We need to look at these two things together. So a sleep log. How much sleep should people be getting? Some people have a vague idea. Well, I sort of, I fall asleep at this time. I wake up at that time-ish. I'm up 4 times a night. And I literally had clients that are like, yeah, when I finally mapped it out, they're getting like 4.5 hours of sleep a night. Chronically sleep deprived. So, again, that depends on the person. The reality is I've done both with these people. You can either track and don't change, or immediately say, okay, the bare minimum, unless you get a lot of opposition to this, action item would be 7.5 hours of sleep minimum. Okay? The goal is to, if you're implementing this system, I'm assuming it's to increase the amount of sleep that they're getting. Okay? The next thing you want to do is you want to test their circadian rhythm. It's, you don't have to go into elaborate sort of testing schemes or anything like that, but why is this based on 7.5 hours? Because a typical rhythm is 45 minutes. So, based on 1.5 segments, getting enough sleep, you're sort of ending on the 7.5 hours or 8 hours and 15 minutes, something like that. Not everybody's the same. We take these generalities, we apply them to people, and then hope they work. I test it. So, what we do with this is we say, okay, 7.5 hours, how are you feeling when you wake up? Are you feeling refreshed when you wake up, or are you feeling like totally groggy and like the alarm's pulling you out of a deep sleep? If it's pulling you out of a deep sleep, let's just plus or minus this. Well, if they're at 7.5 hours, you're not going to minus it. But let's say they're already at 8:15. You can minus that if you see fit. I'll leave that up to you. But let's add 30 minutes. Okay, so if a typical circadian rhythm is 45 minutes, maybe theirs isn't. Maybe it's a weird number. So let's just try and find it. For a week, well, let's go to 8 hours of sleep and see how that feels. And, so you start to play with it. You're going to be working with this person for months, so you have time to do this. It takes 2 seconds to check up on, 2 seconds to implement. You can help them. It's great conversation, in between. Yeah, I tried this, I tried that. Good, perfect. The goal here is to wake up happy. Wake up refreshed. Okay, so you want that. You want to make sure that they're getting the right amount of sleep. I had a client that was getting, more sleep than this, like 9 hours, 9.5 hours. Turned out that he was sleeping he was just always waking up groggy. I wake up and I thought I got enough sleep, but I'm super tired all the time. He was just waking up at the wrong time. So I think we actually brought his sleep down a little bit by like 20 minutes or half an hour, and he started to feel better. So that works. The next thing is discharge some stress. You can't change what stress is in people's jobs necessarily. There are lots of things you can do here. Meditation is probably the one thing that, comes to mind for everybody. There is an obstacle with meditation. If meditation is the only thing you're giving them to do, then maybe they do have time for it. But if you're giving them a bunch of other stuff to do, cardiovascular training, all that sort of stuff, then you need to find a better tactic to discharge their stress that doesn't consume a ton of time during their day, which is just going to add stress. One of the really simple ones, just have some sort of system in place for this. Okay? One of the simple systems here, action item is every 45 minutes to an hour, 1 to 4 minutes. You can call it meditation. But it's really to sit at your desk, calm down, think about something happy, get into, go for a walk, whatever it is you have to do to discharge a little bit. Allow the cortisol to run out of your system and articulate that to them. You really want to feel calmer and then go back into dealing with whatever it is that you have to deal with. If they're in a highly charged environment, this can help to at least eliminate the cortisol for periods of time and allow them to deal with the day better. The goal of this, obviously, is decrease the stress throughout their day. Okay? So, hugely important. Have systems in place for all of these. It just needs to be a handout sheet. That's what you want to do. Now we'll go to stage 4. Okay, stage 4 to me is balanced cardio. What do I mean by that? All of the systems, I'm exaggerating probably. Everybody's focusing on high intensity, whether it's on-off workouts or just pushing yourself to your limit all the time, every time you train. I see it as an athletic therapist, people coming into my studio that are injured because of this process. And the simple fix to this is to have some sort of balance. Recovery cardio, that's the go out, walk, enjoy yourself. Intensity-wise, it's 4 on 10. It doesn't need to be hard. Half an hour of work. Get your heart rate up. Sweat a little bit. Enjoy yourself. Okay? Allow your body to recover by increasing your heart rate to flush your system out without adding stress to it. My rule for recovery, and their action item, 50% of the training that they're doing, cardiovascular training that they're doing, should be recovery. Okay? What is the major goal for this? Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Get out there. Get outside. Get out of the gym. If the gym's a place they love to be, to socialize, doesn't matter what it is. Enjoy it. Get out and get a half an hour of just, loving it. That's what you want out of that. Okay? Then we look at interval training. Interval training from my perspective, has 3 major goals. One is to increase people's capacity to do work. And that's, the entry-level person never really push themselves. You want to just start teaching them how to push themselves a little bit harder. So, the action item for the interval set number 1, like the set, and it's a progression. I make an interval progression sheet for all 3 of these. The action item, which is really just more of a category, is learn to work. Okay? The goal here is to bring out the intensity. Bring out the intensity. Teach them, that it's okay to sweat. It's okay to do that. You can still do this and enjoy it. The other thing that I want them to learn out of this and you can focus on this with these people and they'll really identify with it, is bring the work level up. Then, when the high level interval is over, I want you to teach yourself to recover as quickly as possible. Is a highly neglected part of interval training right now is everybody's focused on the work. if you are not focused on the recovery time between each interval, then you are doing it wrong. It's no question in my mind. I've done it with performance and I've done it with many other things. You do not start the next interval until you're recovered. And not only that, but you want that recovery time to be shorter and shorter all the time. Teach them how to recover, how to normalize their system. Entry level, you should be focusing on that as early as possible. The second interval set I give is learn to run. So there will be a difference in the work times and the rest times for these types of things. So somebody, I want to get into running. I used to run before and I want to really enjoy it. Then you build them a progression on how to get from, just pure walking or walking fast to walk run to eventually taking the walk right out of it. Now, yes, your goal is to focus on full time run. In between, because it's an interval set, you can talk about recovery. Poorly written there. Talk about recovery in between the sets. But there's going to be a bit of a different focus there. There's going to be a focus on, learn how to recover quickly so that you can normalize yourself again and get back to the next interval. But also, you can talk about near the end of the intervals as the rest periods are getting shorter is before the interval ends, I want you to try and start recovering before the interval ends. I know it's ramping up and you're getting tired, but as their capacity increases and the intervals increase, you should be able to help them almost start to normalize before the end of the interval, because that's going to be the transition to full-time running. Once they feel like, I can bring my heart rate down a little bit when I'm running, let's talk about really increasing the work time intervals and making sure they're not zone 5 intervals. For me, there's zone 1 to zone 5 being all out, that you're getting into the run and you're running in zone 1 or running in zone 3. The other interval set, performance or capacity. So again, this interval set is going to be structured different. It's going to be higher workloads, shorter rest times, maybe more intervals, shorter intervals, that type of thing. And depending on what type of athlete it is, you might have to custom build this or build a few different ones for different types of athletes, whether they're, Olympic distance triathlon they want to start doing or anything else. They're hockey players or soccer players or whatever. But you're specifically trying to improve performance here. Again, this is improve capacity and teach recovery. You're dealing with athletes. They've typically never focused on recovery before, and they will thank you for it, if not immediately, very soon after, because they're going to notice, because even if they never noticed before that they could recover quickly, they're going to be like, I can recover in 10 or 15 seconds, and now this becomes a performance tactic. So set yourself up for some sort of running log, some sort of a cardiovascular log, whatever, and have a different set of interval progressions. Don't simply rely on, we're doing 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. 30 seconds on with a dictated amount of time off that doesn't focus on recovery only fosters mediocrity. That's the only thing it does. So make sure that you have some sort of guided system that you can hand to them, something they can follow over time, that's easily guided by you and doesn't take you a ton of time to keep up with and recreate all the time. Okay? And now we go to stage 5. Okay, stage 5 for me is schedules. So now you've, probably at this point you've been working with them for a little while. They're starting to, at times people are getting overwhelmed. They need to be more organized. Or they've hit obstacles that maybe you knew were coming, or I always sort of know they're coming, is, there's holidays and there's travel and there's complexity and all that sort of stuff. So what I want you to have on hand is some sort of simplified model where you can give them 6 weeks is typically a really good amount of time to give them, but give them some sort of calendar that that looks at so 6 weeks. What I get them to do is list everything that they're doing in that 6-week period. So vacation, travel days, work schedule, kids schedule, and anything else that they can think of. High stress times. Because in high stress times, what are you going to do? You're going to adjust what they're doing, what sort of work they're doing, whether, you're increasing the amount of recovery, cardio they're doing, or something else, increasing the amount of stress relievers they have in their life. You are there, you're the tool for them to, throughout the year, change everything that they're doing. So, and accommodate the things that they're doing. You will have no idea how to do any of this if you don't have all of this information. Hey, some people are going to be like, yeah, I work 9 to 5. It's a pretty low stress job, and that's all I do. Yeah, I vacation once a year for 2 weeks. Okay, fine. I've had people like that. Maybe I've had 4 or 5 people like that since 1998. So, not a lot of people. So have them list out all this stuff. Then the goal is for you, is to have a template that you can plug and play all of this sort of stuff. Okay, the travel days. I have a client right now that's travel days, impossible. Can't train. It's like up at 4 in the morning, land, meetings, dinner, alcohol, ready, by the time they get to the hotel. I'm not going to ask them to do a half an hour of meditation or cardio or anything like that because, ideally I would. But the reality is that some people's travel days are just not like that. So, what do I need to know about that? I need to know that the next morning you're getting up. We need to hydrate. We need to do cardio. We need to do this so that I can templatize this. It's not going to take me 2 hours to put this together every 6 weeks for them and really just, put together a plan. That also will provide you with the accountability of, hey, if let's say you don't see them for 3 weeks, you can send an email, send a text, depending on how you keep in contact with your clients. How was that training that you were supposed to do yesterday or whatever? And this sort of stuff, keeps you in touch with your clients, and your high-level clients will definitely appreciate this sort of stuff. It's extremely valuable to them and works very, very well. People like having what they're supposed to do on that day. So the schedule's very simple. Create yourself a template that you can use reliably. Get all the information, and I mean all the information from them, and then build them some sort of idea of what they're supposed to be doing outside the gym when they're not with you or outside the studio. Because if they're not doing work outside the studio and they're not with you 4 or 5 times a week, there's a very small chance that they're going to achieve their goal. So really make sure that they're doing stuff outside the gym. Okay, the final step in it, stage 6, we'll get to right now. Okay, stage 6, mini challenges. I'm gonna in the next video I'm gonna talk about motivation, the motivational system that I use, which is extremely important for their short, medium, and long-term success. Part of this is mini challenges, but you want to be encouraging that the work that they're doing outside the gym as much as possible, so you can come up with just very small challenges that will either last 4, 6, 8 weeks, something like that. Having these things in place is going to be a huge help for you. And all you have to do, the system you have to have in place, is very simply an ideas list. An ideas list of the things that you could possibly give them so that they can take action on it. The action item for them would be like, okay, I want you to get better at, I don't know, handstands. Next 6 weeks, you're going to practice your handstand whenever you can. Let's test it right now, what you can do. Okay, I want you to improve by 50% or 100%. So if you can stay in a handstand for, whatever it is, 10 or 15 seconds, now I want you to be able to stay in a handstand for 30 seconds, and I want you to be able to take a few steps. You got 6 weeks to do this, and the overall goal for this isn't achieving the mini challenge. I mean, it is, you want them to work towards the mini challenge. The overall goal of this system, the mini challenge system, is outside adherence. You want them to be sticking to the program, doing the things that they're supposed to be doing when they're working on their mini challenge. Hey, you work on your mini challenge right at the time that you're supposed to do your workouts, your cardiovascular training, whatever it is. But use that as a tool to create adherence outside the gym. Okay? That is all of the systems that that I use. I mean, there are more systems, but in general, those are the systems that I use. I also run with a priority list of those stages. So when we talk about the things that when people get overwhelmed and they say, like, I'm trying to do all of these things, but, I don't know what to do anymore. Hey, let's look at a priority. We need the nutrition, hydration comes first. We need sleep and stress to decrease. We need, all of these things to happen, and have a priority list. There are a few different types of priority lists depending on what their goals are. But in general, I have, that posted, the nutrition, hydration, sleep and stress for sure. And then we start looking at things like consistency and then doing their exercise programs. And so it's really important that you have in your head and in their head some sort of priority list of the things that they need to get done, so they can report back to you saying, like, okay, I'm getting the top 3 priority things done, but I'm not getting the other ones done because I simply don't have enough time. Then it becomes your job to figure out, okay, what changes are we going to make sure that you get your goals, or you talk to them about, like, hey, if you're going to get where you need to go, you need to start making some changes. Okay? In the next video, I'm going to talk about a hugely important thing that you need to be setting up with your clients. I'm going to be talking about a motivational system. Motivating people, communicating with people, being able to understand what's going on in their lives and how you can best help them is probably one of the most misunderstood aspects of being a fitness coach. You need to have, there's a lot of coaches out there, they're just the balls to the wall, push, 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 high expectations. I can tell you, having studied the psychology of this for many years, that is not going to get the majority of the people working long term. Short term, they might adhere to it a little bit, lose 15, 20 pounds if that's their goal. Any fit pro can make somebody lose 15 or 20 pounds. What you're What you really want to focus on is long-term, and there is a system for that, obviously. So we're going to talk about motivation. We're going to talk about communication. The other thing we're going to talk about is we're going to take some of these systems that we talked about and setting up your referral partners, so the people that you're working with where maybe you don't have the skill, but you want to set up an association with somebody that does, so that when you run into an issue, so nutritionally, when things get nutritionally complicated, you need to have some sort of dietitian, somebody that can deal with those types of things. Psychologically, when things get really complicated for somebody and it's beyond our scope of practice, maybe you have some sort of psychologist that you know, that you work with, that understands your methodology. This will pay you huge dividends for a bunch of different things. How to make sure your clients are getting the right things at the right time, and they see you as the driving force behind that. It'll increase your marketing. It'll increase your referral base, and it is the one of the major keys to becoming a master and becoming a guru, and somebody that people really rely on and people know. So we'll talk about all of that in the next video. I would love to hear your comments on this. I know I said I would keep it short. There's a ton of information there. I hope you got a ton out of it. But leave me your comments. I will get back as best I can to reply to everybody's. If there's a bunch of people asking the same question, maybe I'll just make a video post on it, something like that. But I'd love to hear about it. Feel free. I encourage you to share this with any other fit pros you know. My goal is to really help the people that are in that dead zone get out of the dead zone, and really bridge the gap between the therapy world and the fitness world. So the more people we have talking about this, the better it's going to be in the long run. So please share it with the people that you know could get something out of it. And I will see you in the next video. Between now and then, as always, be active, be healthy, and most of all, be injury-free.